a spiritual ego when we are on a spiritual journey, as we're chasing enlightenment, as we're chasing awakening, we are all going to go through the process of developing a spiritualized ego. Why? Because all of us have an ego. When we're humans, we have an ego. And when we feed it spiritual information, the ego will hold on to that and it will make itself spiritual. So to have a conversation about this, to give you some ideas of how you can work through transcending yours, discover that you even have one, identify it. I have a dear friend and a colleague. Ella is here with me. Ella, Noel, Starr. Here we are, the two of us together, having a conversation not only as colleagues, because you are a coach, you are an intuitive healer, you do work with clients, but this also is a conversation as friends who we're going to just really be open and raw about what the spiritual ego has done in our lives, with the desire to inspire some spiritual teachers out there, some healers out there that cannot take their work to the next level until they see that spiritual ego in them. So welcome to having this conversation with me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Me too. Tell me, what have you discovered about the spiritual ego?
So I would say what I discovered is for so many years, I've been working on myself. And at one point, attending, the spiritual masterclass really made a huge difference for me. But I'm working on myself for so long, I had no idea that what I was doing was literally, how do I want to say this? It kind of almost got tricked. Didn't realize I was getting tricked, but I got tricked.
Yeah.
Because here I am thinking I'm healing all of this stuff from my past wounds. I'm healing this. I'm overcoming that and all these things. But it wasn't until, I don't know, what was it, a year ago, roughly? Because I discovered it in your class. It was about a year-ish.
Yeah. You began to see it.
I began to see it. And when I began to see it, it was like, holy crap, because what I was being shown was I was still operating from the same place of the victim, of the fear, of the, stories, of the everything that I had thought that for so many years I had healed and overcame. Nope. Instead, all it was just with spiritual words, and I now know stuff, and ha ha ha, and I'm all better. Not realizing that I was still being, it was like a different way, and it was only to select people, but it just showed up in a different format. And when that veil lifted from my eyes and those bubbles started to pop, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got more work to
do. So let's paint the stage here. When you say you've been working on yourself for a very long time, so you did come to my mastery class last year.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, for whoever's listening to this for the first time and have no idea what that is, it's a 1-year long program, and then Ella is in it again this year. So before that class, how long had you been doing self-awareness work, spiritual work?
I would say it started for me in 2002.
Okay, so you've been at it for about 16 years, 17 years.
Yeah, I've been at it for a while.
So what was it that you began to discover in those 16, 17 years that had you believe that you were at whatever level you were at whatever, whatever awareness that you were at, that you then saw the spiritualized ego and you went, oh my gosh, there's still more.
Yeah.
So paint the picture. What did you discover and where was your confidence in yourself until you saw this picture?
Let's see. So over the 16-ish years, I took classes, I read books, I did, what everybody does. I started reading cards for people, because I'm like, if I'm doing this for other people,
like tarot
I have
cards?
to look at myself,
The tarot cards?
Angel cards, oracle cards.
Oracle cards, yeah.
Yeah, so I started doing, that kind of work, and I became a Reiki master and a coach because I felt like, okay, this is kind of where I'm headed. And I became a coach and a Reiki master in 2008. So I'd done some work, and then I'm like, okay, this is my calling. And in it, I'm thinking, oh, I'm doing my work. But I was completely oblivious that I was doing my work, but I wasn't doing my work, if that makes any sense.
Break it down, because what you're saying is
So what I'm
so important.
So basically, I was aware of spirit. I'm aware of the love and the genuinity and certain things of that nature. And I was aware of these things, and I really thought I was applying them, but what was actually really happening is, I was applying them to a degree, but it wasn't deep. There wasn't a deepening happening. Like, I was still having fears. I was still having all these upsets. I was still having reactions, certain things that you would think would just poof when you are becoming, a spiritual person.
Yeah.
But, I'm thinking I'm overcome and I'm just doing my thing and I'm teach people and life's great. And then when I had the pleasure of taking your class last year, when we're talking about the ego, and how sneaky that the ego is, and how it does want to kind of keep you in a misery box, for lack of a better way of saying it. I can't remember exactly where we were at in the class when I had the smack, but I just remember getting the smack. And it was like, oh yeah, the big aha light bulb moment of, oh wait, there's more. And what that stirred up for me is that, I'm really big about integrity. And so I then had to look at the fact that, oh, yes, not to say that what I was doing was wrong, or that I taught wrong, or I did anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong, but I wasn't in my true 100% authentic integrity. Yeah. I was in a different format of integrity, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes, it makes perfect sense, because what you're describing is what happens to all of us. We have a moment of transcendence. We feel a connection with spirit. We want to move towards the light. We are literally seduced into the spiritual journey because it feels so much better than anything we've ever felt before. It begins to activate a truth that we want to live from a loving, peaceful place. We want to accept that there's something angelic, something benevolent, something transcendent about us. So everybody moves down this path of wanting to get to that better feeling place. And it's very, very natural. And we will go ahead and begin to teach. We begin to help others. And I believe that for many of us, this is part of how we come to see that spiritualized ego.
I agree with that.
Because we begin to teach others what we know, and we can be really good at helping other people change their lives. But what happens is that we come home, and with the people that we're closest to, we then begin to get on a pedestal and a high and mighty, I know more than you. We get all spiritualized, and we begin to let them know what they should be doing according to our spiritual truth. And that is actually not at all what being spiritual is all about. So when you began to see that distinction, that you could be a wonderful healer for almost 10 years, you're healing. I went and had a session with you last year, so I can vouch for the love and the integrity that you had, and your presence was there. So you were being a wonderful channel. So becoming spiritual opened up that channel for you.
Yeah.
But you hadn't gotten rid of
nope.
The ego. The ego just got spiritualized.
It just got a little spiritualized. It got a little cocky.
It gets very cocky. I know it in others because I had to see it in me. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I am so determined to help healers, teachers, coaches, any one of us who is operating under the guise of we're spiritual and we lead a congregation or a group or whatever it might be. If we don't face that spiritual ego, we cannot go as deep into the promise of freedom that is possible when we transcend the ego. So before we get to what you're experiencing, because you're facing that spiritualized ego, What were the glaring differences between who you thought you were when you arrived at all your, spiritual place, and then you began, you were smacked in the face with this awareness?
So, for me, it was kind of, you know, almost, how do I want to say it? It was very shocking in a way,
It is.
because, I'm thinking I'm doing awesome. I got this shit down. Life's great. And then boom, haha, just wait, there's more, hun. Wait, there's more. And so when I got to that point of having that smack, and honestly, as shocking as it was, I was so grateful to have that, because there's, even though it's been a challenge in certain ways, because now I have to, like, that stirs up all these things,
Yeah.
am I not in my integrity? Am I in my integrity? All the things, like just everything that can get stirred up that would make you almost want to hide and just pretend you didn't know that you had one.
Yes, yeah. You're absolutely right. Once you see it, you do. It's shocking. It's shocking that me, Miss Spiritual, Miss Teacher, Miss Coach, Miss Master, Reiki Master, how could I have this thing in me? But I want you to isolate.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about that you could, to describe it, what did it feel like, this thing, this recognition of what was this thing that you were discovering?
I would say, trying to remember that fully, but what comes to me is, there was, as much as it was shocking, there was almost like this awakening in the sense of peace happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like almost like being birthed again, like going
Mm-hmm.
through rebirth, if you will. Because it was shocking. Yes, it stirs up stuff. Yes, it's hard, but to me, looking at the hard stuff is worth it, because so much more greatness comes from looking at the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Like facing your crap, it's just worth it to me.
Yeah.
And so after my shock moment, and I'm with it, like it's like almost felt lighter. Like I had hope to become the person who I've always wanted to be, that apparently was struggling to become, thinking that I was on some level, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. But I do want to paint a picture of what is this thing, this spiritual ego that now you're facing. What was it doing to you?
So it was basically like kept me in the box of victim.
Mm-hmm.
I unknowingly was still walking as a victim. I'd done so much work on all of the traumas, but yet they were still running my life. But I couldn't see that they were still running my life, because I had all the spiritual stuff. So it's like, oh, it's not me, and da da da, and I could just brush this off, and it's everybody else, but it's not me, kind of thing. But when in actuality, it was all me. Like I was still acting from a victim mentality. I just shifted the way that the victim looked.
Mm-hmm.
Like that victim, so going from before getting spiritualized, I had, that whole poor me story going on. Then I get spiritualized, and then I have like I'm this healer, and I'm whatever, not realizing that I'm still pulling the victim mentality at home, still creating chaos at home, fights and things of that nature, because I was still hurting, but I couldn't see that I was still hurting, because I was healed, right? That's what happens when you get spiritually.
You're a healer.
That's it. You're done.
Yes. Yeah.
But
but that spiritualized ego, all it is the part of us that still believes that we're separate from one another. It still creates hierarchy. It's the part of us that now knows that because we help others heal, that's one of the why using the term healer, it can be a trap. It's a trap of the ego, because it gives us permission to believe that we are transcending the stuff of the world, and look at me, I'm a healer. So whatever comes out of my mouth is right. And if I'm telling you this is it, this is it. And yes, we have clients who come to us, and inside of the client relationship, we can come off of that pedestal and meet them in service and do wonderful work. and
Yep.
be totally, completely present. I know I did it for a very long time,
Yeah.
but then you leave that space where you are being used as a channel, as a vessel, and now you're around your friends
Yeah.
and you think you know better. You're around your partner and you
Oh
think
yeah.
you know better. You
I
get around your
I'm
mom
doing
and you
that.
get triggered. So talk about when you began to see that part of you. Yes, it helped you go, oh my gosh, I'm really, this is actually, this is where the freedom comes in. If you don't see this, if you don't see the spiritualized ego, you cannot experience the freedom that
Right.
awakening promises, right? That's what's
Yeah.
in your experience.
Yeah. It's been incredible.
Talk about the freedom now, so that then when we talk about the ego in just in examples, you now we painted the picture of what the freedom will be. People can experience as you talk about it, because we've been talking about how it is a judgmental aspect of ourselves that continues to judge only from a spiritual
That's right.
know-it-all perspective.
Yeah. So ever since my beautiful awake, or I don't want to say awakening, but my beautiful smack of awareness, um, you know, it has stirred up some things, but because of my drive and desire to face what's being stirred and everything else, I have more peace in my being than I have ever had in my entire life. I have more compassion in certain ways. And I mean, I'm still working through my stuff. I'm still, in the process, but now I have a different awareness of that process. Like I at least know what I'm dealing with on a level, and it can't, it can try to hide, but it is always found out, if you will. But because of that, I'm having beautiful relationships. Like, I have no fear
Yeah,
in
yeah,
certain areas in so many ways, because I have this new sense of trust, this new sense of peace, this new sense of knowing, this new sense of being, that I can just be present. I'm not 5 months ago. I'm not even a week ago. I'm right here. I'm
yeah,
not stressing about what's going to happen
yeah,
down the road. I'm right here. It has brought me to a whole new realm of just beauty.
yeah.
I
Mm,
like
mm.
it's amazing. I would not trade this for the world. It did not at all. Every little experience that I've ever had in my life got me here, and for that I'm truly grateful.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's just been an incredible experience, even though there have been times where it's hard, and there's been grieving. Like I had to grieve. There was some grief that's come through that, to kind of release the old to embrace the new, if you will. But it's been worth every bit of it.
Yeah. Yes. Some of the things that are really uncomfortable about seeing our ego is it requires an incredible level of honesty,
That's so
because
true.
we have got to be honest that when we're operating from the I know it all spiritual mind, we are not connected to spirit. It is a block to spirit. That's why the spiritualized ego is a trickster, because it's a pretense that we know what spirit knows, but it's actually a block. It's a disguise that
Yeah.
we wear that cause us to not allow spirit to guide us, which is why so many spiritual healers and teachers and coaches experience so much fear.
Yeah.
And any tiny little bit of fear, the ego's involved, because
Yeah.
the ego is what activates that fear. So speak to that.
That is actually my cue. Like if I have like a moment of a fear, like a moment, I'm like, oh, wait, why? Check in. Nope. Shift. It's like it's become my cue. Because I will say one of the things that I'm really enjoying is the clarity that I have with source, with spirit.
Yeah.
I thought my channel was clear before, and I've been told, like I've had every client tell me how clear and accurate and all the things and da da da. Great. But right now, I'm like, I'm not in the way.
Yeah.
I'm no longer in the way because
Yeah.
there's nothing to be in the way. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just removing block after block after block. So when that little fear kicks in, I know I need to do a check-in
Yeah.
and go
Yeah,
take a
that's
breather.
the perfect way to describe it, because our ego, spiritualized or not spiritualized, is the block to spirit. It's the block to our truth. It's the block to our freedom. So what makes it really vicious when it gets spiritualized is that we believe that we have somehow this connection or this access to God that still makes us feel superior.
Yeah.
And some egos will spiritualize as inferior. You do all this spiritual work, and then I'm not worthy of saying your name, and we go to the place where uh, we won't be willing to acknowledge that we are one with it. So it shows up in different ways. But for somebody who goes into the teaching mode, it shows up as superior.
Yeah.
And because I teach it or I coach it or I stand for it. Let's talk a little bit about how that shows up. That judgmental part showed up in your relationships that you were able to see so clearly, kept you from having the deeper, more meaningful relationships that you now are having. Let's say specifically with your children. Let's talk about it there.
So prior to my awareness of the spiritualized ego, I had, decent relationship with my kids. I thought I had a good relationship with my children, but comes to find out, I was very much so. I was like how do I say this? I was the spiritual mom that would try to like kind of force it, but see, everything's this, and try to kind of, I don't know, like kind of shove them into that space, if you will, try to like whatever. And in that time period, we had closeness, but we also had disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
We would talk, but we wouldn't talk, if that, that kind of thing. But since my awareness of the spiritualized ego, since then, because of me being able to be truly authentic and deep within myself, my kids, I'm noticing, they feel more comfortable being around me. Like they're like seeking me out. They're wanting to be with me.
Yeah.
I have amazing conversations with my 9-year-old about spirit and how we never die and things like that, and travel and whatever comes up, whatever pops into her beautiful head, we talk about it. My 5-year-old he's 5, but he wants to come snuggle. But there's like a whole different types of deepening. I have an 18-year-old, and what's really interesting is that so many people, my family members, aren't you worried about her? Aren't you worried that she's not, doing this? Or no, I'm not worried at all, because she's got her path that she's doing her thing, and I know when she finds what she needs to do, she'll have the drive and she'll do whatever she needs to do.
Yeah.
She has the space to be where she's at. All of my kids have the space to be where they're at. They don't have to show up a certain way for me.
Well, that's a key point that you're sharing right there, is when we are all in our ego, spiritualized or not, but I want to address the spiritualized ego because it's very tricky. When you're a teacher, when you are teaching other people about their spiritual path or healing, standing as a healing vessel, conduit, is the judgment. The judgment is what makes people not want to be with us. They don't feel safe. They don't feel heard. They don't feel acknowledged. And what is spirit in them can recognize that we talk spirit, but we are not being spirit. We talk about how they should be loving and kind, but we're not loving and kind when we're judging. So that's a really important distinction, because until we get really clear that it is, the ego mind is an insistence in being other than how God created us, God cannot go, God, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't have full use of us when we are deciding what we know, what we don't know, what others should do or shouldn't do. When we are judging people, you're not being spiritually enough, you're doing your meditations long enough.
I kind of got to a point where if I catch myself in that judging thought, I'm like, who the hell am I to sit here and put that on you? I don't know who you are, which path is, which purpose is. So who am I to say otherwise? That's between you and God. That's between you and spirit. That's your business.
Yeah. Well, that's where that trust comes in, is we have to stop judging because we realize we don't know. We're a point of awareness for spirit, but so is everybody else.
Exactly.
And that spiritualized ego is, I know everything because I heal. Well, no, we don't. We only know what we know. We don't know what's best for anybody else. And when that clarity comes in, we free everybody else to be themselves. And that's when we actually become the presence of spirit. That's when spirit can work through us, because there can be no judgment, zero fear.
There's such a difference. There really is such a difference between, operating from that spiritualized ego and then having the awareness and operating free of it, if you will, for lack of a better way of saying it. And it's really hard to put into words that feeling that you have when you get out of that space, when you give yourself permission to just face whatever it is you've got to face to overcome that hurdle, to get free of your spiritualized ego. Like, there's just something that's just, it's just a nice neutral peace. Like, it's just a nice neutral peace. Like, it's a beautiful feeling to have. And it's not something, because, one thing's, doing all the spiritual work, like, you'd feel good for a little bit and then you kind of fall back, and then you feel good for a little bit, and there's that whole teeter-totter thing going on.
Until you see your ego, you're not consistent. You cannot sustain.
No, there's no consistent. You're just boop, boop, boop. But since I've discovered the spiritualized ego and have done the work to get to this point, there's been no teeter-totter. I am literally walking all the time in a neutral peace.
Yeah, that's because you identify, you become aware of the part inside of you, which is just our righteous self, that creates the chaos, creates the disconnections, creates the fears, because we label things, we value this, we don't value that. And being able to see that spiritualized ego, and for me it began in about 2008 with a relationship. I had gotten into a new relationship, and this man that I was eventually married, and I began to see, I'm a teacher. I meet him. He comes to my class. I've been teaching already for a couple of years when I met him. So I was feeling a level of confidence in my work. And while he was listening to what I had to say and following that, we got along great. But once he began to resist what I was saying, I began to notice that there was a reaction in me that was not very kind. And I was shocked, because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a teacher of love. I'm a teacher of compassion and kindness. And I was not kind in that moment. So I faced that part of myself with shock, like you were saying. I could not believe it, that was inside of me. And then it was quite a few years of being tricked by this part of me that said that I'm loving, but I'm fearing things that were happening in our relationship. And that's when I began to study A Course in Miracles. And in A Course in Miracles, I got that list, those characteristics of somebody who lives without an ego. When I began to apply those characteristics, which were basically, do I really trust God? Do I say that I am energy? Then why am I fearing what could happen to this body? Do I say that I am honest? And why do I say any judgmental things? Because to be judgmental is to be dishonest, because then I'm playing God. God doesn't have use of me to express itself. And of course, the reactions and the putting other people down, the intolerance, the need to be right, because that's
Yeah.
where I really saw it, kept me from being the presence of gentle love, compassionate love,
Yeah.
that lets every being be who they are, no matter what. And that's where the fears go away, because whatever my children chose to do, um, I they belong to God, not to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was so profoundly different, because now I can see things in the world that are not okay, because there are things that I am being called to participate in,
Yeah.
but not from a place of judging it, rather from a place of recognizing it's a call for love.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to bring the awareness of the love that is possible, not a you're doing something wrong, you need to fix it, you need to change it. Because I realized that while I was operating from my spiritualized ego, there was no humbleness, none
No,
whatsoever.
no, there wasn't. There was no room,
No,
you
a
know, and it
spiritual
was
boy.
just like, just, yeah, yeah, you know, and it's just kind of constantly butting heads. You know, now it's like, oh, there's no need for all of that. Okay, if this is what's coming up for you, that's fine. You do you. I'll be over here. We'll connect later. All's well in the world. You know? It's
Yeah,
like,
and that can be disconcerting to other people. Talk about how did things change for you when you began to see that, and you were not operating from that reactive, righteous place and
so
judgmental place.
at first, those around me didn't know how to be. So they were still expecting me to show up the way that they know for me to show up. So there was at first like a little discord, if you will, because it's like, wait, who are you? What's happening here? You know, there weren't. It was like almost like this uncertainty for them.
Yeah,
You know, and but once they saw the consistency, I would say, because I've just been, you know, just in my little neutral peace, little happy self, just do my thing. And so once they began to see the consistency in it, all of a sudden I see the shift in them, like how they are around me. They feel more relaxed. They can breathe. They're not tense. They're just kind of chill. And it's great, you know. So yeah, there's a little, I'd say, hiccup moments, if you will, once you start doing this. And it makes sense because, you know, you and that person have been training each other to show up a certain way for however
yeah,
long.
yeah,
And then when somebody starts changing the game, the other
yeah,
person's definitely going to have their little stirring issues and try to poke at you and try to hook you and try to get back to that familiarity for them, for themselves. But if you can maintain the course, they eventually shift.
yeah. And that is a very important thing, because when we start getting spiritual, we want people to know the book that I just read. Do you know
Yeah.
about your chakras? Do you know that you can
Yeah.
clear this? Do you know that you can align that? Do you know about meditation? Do you know? Let's pull this card. Let's pull that card. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
it is. We really become very judgmental, and we're trying to control people's behaviors from this new idea that we have.
Yeah.
But that is part of the process. So we have to be gentle with ourselves and forgive ourselves for the ways that we put some people off with our spirituality. It's no different than being religious or atheist and pushing that on somebody else. But the spiritual journey is about emptying ourselves of thinking that we know anything.
Yeah.
So that source, God, spirit, whatever we want to call it, creator, can then infill us with what we need to know in that moment.
Yeah.
And for me, it was really fascinating having an opinion about that partner that I knew was quite judgmental, and making a decision to not believe that thought in my head, and watching that thought dissolve, and me feeling like, well, if I don't have an opinion, then what good am I here?
Right.
What's my purpose here? And it was literally a dying inside of this
Yeah.
righteous
Yeah.
person, this story of
Yeah.
Laina, and allowing myself to operate in that not knowing. And
You know, that dying part. Oh, so yes. Yes, I think I called you during my dying part.
You told me many times.
But I remember because I was like, I'm not sure what's happening here right now, but I think,
Yeah.
you know, because at some point, once you see the spiritualized ego, and then you work on yourself in that spiritualized ego, eventually it does die, it does dissolve, and that feeling it's a different kind of feeling because, you know, for at least like my experience, like it was so, I just went numb for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I just went kind of numb, and I'm like, I'm not feeling anything.
Yes, because we don't know who that authentic one is. While
Yeah,
we've been wearing our egoic mask
yeah,
all along and been reactive and righteous and judgmental. So yes, this neutral part of us, in many ways, it felt like to me, by not having those, by letting go of the judgments, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm being a doormat here. I'm going to get stepped all over. I'm going to get used and abused. And I was called oftentimes, oh, you're being condescending, not talking to me. And, you know, you have nothing to say now. And I was like, I, I was hearing guidance saying, there's nothing to say. Don't say anything. Listen.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that need to quickly, you know, blurt out what I know, dissolved.
Yeah,
And I
it
didn't know who I
disappears.
was. Yeah, I didn't know who I was.
But
Something was emerging.
it was, and the thing is like going back to that whole, you know, not spitting that out. That that was like, that's a, I will say that was one of the difficult things, is like biting the tongue, you know, because you really want to get, especially when you're starting to shed old and step into this newness. There's that familiarity of wanting to like wanting to stay hooked in that, but also the sense of knowing that, wait, no, there's something better if you don't. And so like sometimes you mess up and you spit out, and sometimes you don't, you know, kind of thing. And you do that until you kind of get to a point where it's like, no, I really don't want to play in this game anymore. It doesn't bring me any peace. I'm good. You know, and I think for me, when I finally got to that point, I think it was shortly there. I got to a point where I broke down and I said, I don't want to be a righteous bitch anymore. I just broke down. And it was a few days after I finally just let that all go. That's when I started to feel the numbness. And then from the numbness, I felt like almost like empty. And I'm like, this is different. But, you know, with our conversation that we had, what was coming through is that, well, it's just a sense of peace. You're not feeling anything because there's nothing to feel in this moment. Because I was still feeling joy. But if I just sat by myself, I was just, here I am.
Yeah.
But that's all I needed to do was just be, here I am.
Yeah. But you
You
know,
know?
it's a very challenging thing for healers and teachers and coaches to not only to see this, but also because usually you can't see your own blind spots,
Yeah.
but also to work through it. What suggestions, advice do you have for anybody that's a teacher and a healer, so that you can recommend to them, or
Well,
that you can be an example of why they want to do this kind of very, very uncomfortable, intimate work?
I would say the best thing to do is just be completely raw and honest with yourself. You know, first and foremost, give yourself permission to just be fully raw and honest with yourself, even if it's not in front of anybody else at first. Just with you, call out whatever it is that you know that needs to come out to be healed, to really be released. Call out your spiritualized ego. Just call it out.
Yeah.
And whatever comes up and comes through for you, act accordingly. You know, if you need, you know, assistance, get the assistance. You know, just because you're a teacher doesn't mean that you don't need help. Just because you're a healer doesn't mean you don't need help.
Yeah.
You know, find ways to do it, but be honest about with people with what you're doing. That was one thing I did. I was just let everybody know, okay, I'm working on this. I'm going to be a little whatever. Just kind of give me some space, because I knew I didn't know what to come, but I knew something was to come. You
Yeah.
know, just be gentle.
But
Oh God, we did too with your
you
son.
had me in the class to help you see
I did. I
the
did.
ego. So, and the way you see it is you zero in on the honesty of when you are, number one, when you're controlling,
Yep.
when you're in fear,
Yep.
when you're judging,
Yep.
when you're not trusting,
Yeah.
when fear is the indicator
It
that,
really is. It
yeah,
really, really is. If you are feeling any, I don't care how small that fear piece is, if you're feeling any of it, that is a part of you that you need to bring to the surface to take care of.
yeah. And that to me is one of the most important things that I learned from the Course in Miracles, is that anything that is fear is ego. So we can get all spiritualized. We can be going to all kinds of new thought communities and
Yeah.
participating in all the chanting you want. But if you're afraid that you're going to get sick, if you're afraid that you're going to die, if you're afraid your child is going to get hurt, if you're afraid your kid's not going to get into college, if you're afraid your partner
Yeah.
is not,
That's not being
seeing you in time,
spiritual. That's not
then
being connected to source.
exactly. Then
You
in
know,
that moment, you are attempting to control something, circumstances. There's zero trust. So you're not in alignment with, your connection with the fact that you are actually non-physical energy.
yeah. And controlling, that was another thing. It's like if I find myself, getting into that space, which I really don't anymore, I see what comes up and I address it accordingly. But, controlling, I, as a parent, like I get why, like parents want to control and protect their babies. And I get that. I so get that. But the thing is that they're already protected. All you have to do is
Exactly.
be a guiding light for them.
Exactly. What you just said is so key. Every one of us is protected. Every one of us. That's what we're waking up to, is the
Yeah.
awareness that we are already safe in the mind of God. We're already safe in this universe. We cannot not be safe by virtue of the fact that we are eternal non-physical energy.
No, it's so true. The fact that my 9-year-old is already getting that just makes my heart so happy,
I
because
know.
she's the one that came to that. Like, we're just having a conversation, and in it, I'm talking to her about our souls and how, like, they remember everything, and she's like, "So that, Mom, technically, then we don't die." I'm like, "No, we don't.
Yes.
We just
And
shed a body and go into a new one."
and when we move out of those fears, and at least acknowledge them, at first we have to
Yeah,
acknowledge them. What opens up is the door for true safety,
it's so good. It feels
true
so good.
peace, to
Yeah,
and true connection, because then we recognize all of it is connected. This is where the teachings of forgiveness come in. What is there that you would ever want to hold as a grudge for anybody, when you can just forgive yourself for having that moment of egoic thought, and you forgive yourself for forgetting
yeah,
to have that connection directly, and know that everybody has it too, and trust that everybody has it too.
yeah, yeah. This is
Well,
true. I
it's
tell you
definitely,
this.
it's not an easy thing to do.
It's not easy, but it's so worth it.
Yes.
It's beyond worth it. I'm gaining so much more than I could even fathom.
Well, let's talk about that as a healer. What are you gaining in your work, and as a coach, a spiritual coach, because of this awareness?
It's well, because of where we are right now, I'm not really seeing many at this time, but it's starting to pick up again. And I'll say that the experiences that have had, um, it has honestly, it's been really good, like clear, and I don't know, it's just there's a different essence that's happening, because it's not me thinking anything. It's just I'm just showing up. Here I am, and I've done that before, but the difference is that because I really have been removing those blocks, it's stronger, it's
Yeah.
clearer, it's like there's more of a connection. I can see their essence more than I've ever been able to see it
Yeah.
before. Like could see people's lights, but now I'm really seeing people's lights.
Yeah.
And it's really neat because I'm actually, Source has shown me just how connected we really are through light. Like I can see, it's brilliant. It's just brilliant.
Well, while
So
our ego,
get all that in essence.
while our ego is involved, it's like we get glimpses of it and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But once we remove that block, once that more of that is not blocking, yes, you can see more clearly. You can, people can feel your peace more so. You can be more present. I know for me that's been one of the most amazing things. You said this earlier. Without the ego, we're present in this now moment. We're not worried about, the past. We have no guilt and shame about the past. We are here now. We get to be here right now.
And it's amazing. Like I'm noticing, my whole life, I've always had people just come up to me out at the store out of nowhere and want to tell me their life story and certain things. But, what's interesting is that even now it's still happening, but there's a different air in it because, before I had to be like, okay, I'm here. Okay. I've got to get, okay. But now I'm just like, oh, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. There's something here for us. Let's be here. It's completely different. It's all about being in the present.
Yeah.
There's a freedom in it.
Totally. Now, we talked about your relationship with your children has improved. What about your relationship with other people in general?
I would say that my relationship with my partner has really been, he's been like one of my big teachers for sure. Bless his heart. He's been one of my big teachers. And, going through these changes, it kind of activated, a year ago. But since him and I have reconnected and I recognizing my spiritualized ego, what I would feel with him or how he would be towards me, it was like a good, cue. Like it just kind of let me know where I was at, if you will. So when I would get reactive, I know that I was still in an ego space. And if he was in that, then I knew he would. And so it took us a little bit to kind of find a way. But what's interesting is I just sent him a thing this morning that just said, I'm really enjoying the new space that we're in. Thank you. Because what's transpired is that we can just kind of be in a room and just talk and hang out, or he'll do his thing, I'll do my thing. I'm not worried about what he's doing, what he's not doing. If I need to move, I'll move. If I don't, I won't. It's like I'm not stressing out about all these things. When he's doing his thing, that's great because I'm here present doing my thing. And then when we're together, we're present together.
Yes.
And it's really quite wonderful. It's like I can breathe.
Yes, because until we identify that egoic mind and we don't let it run our lives, we have this incessant chatter going on. We have to go meditate to get the mind quiet. But when we see the ego and we begin to transcend it, quiet is the natural state of beingness. So that's how we can be appropriate in the now moment. That's how we can be present, to feel, to sense, to be able to receive guidance right now, because the mind's not busy planning, plotting, correcting, directing.
Not trying to manipulate anything, not trying to control anything, just kind of letting things be where they're going to be. One of my things with him over the years was like, I had like jealousy issues and trust issues and all of these issues. And since recently, since this discovery, if you will, and like if you end up doing something with somebody else, then I know what I need to do for myself. And it's like it's just all of a sudden there's just no worry about it. And another relationship, it's so great.
So liberating, huh?
It really is, because now I can actually, be present. Like we're discovering things about each other that we didn't really know because there wasn't room.
Yeah.
And, even with my mom, I, love her to pieces, but I struggled with my mom for years because of all of the stuff, over the periods of the whatever. And now I'm like, I have none of that. There's no anger. There's no why and how dare. There's none of that. There's my mom. She's just doing her thing, and I love her, and I'm here. So when we talk, I'm present. And then when we're not together, I'm not
because
stressing.
the ego is what holds the memories of the past active in our minds. So we can always have that evidence of why it is that I can't be okay around you, why it is that you hurt me and I should be on guard and I'm not safe. It maintains that past memory, which is another reason why, you don't really have to sit and meditate. You are in a state of meditation ongoing.
State of meditation.
Yes.
And, I think
you're not
that
repeating evidence in your mind.
there's no monkey chatter. And I think that's where that neutral peace, like, feeling comes from, because I'm not feeling all of these feelings from the past and I'm still carrying. All of that's been let go. So I'm just, if I'm here, I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling here.
Yeah. Yeah, because before you start on the spiritual journey, if you are jealous and if you are controlling, if you are type A, if you are, a planner and whatever, you go on the spiritual path and all those things go with you.
Yep.
Because it's part of your ego.
Yep.
That's what the ego does.
Yeah.
But when you begin to see that egoic side and that those things begin to drop away, I mean, it's fascinating to watch people who are really spiritual, amazing healers, but in terror of getting sick, in terror of their partner cheating on them. That's not freedom. That's not freedom, because there's really not a connection to source, to God. It hasn't been cultivated because we still have this mind that's trying to do it. We're still thinking we can figure this out. We can control it. We can stop it. We can start it.
Yeah.
And this is about flowing, surrendering, accepting.
I tell you, my safety lies in my defenselessness. Mm-hmm. Tolerance, gentleness, mindfulness, all of these things have been such a beautiful part in helping me get through all of this. So, for those who are wanting to do it, my safety lies in my defenselessness. There's nothing for you to defend. There's no reason to defend. It's going to get you nowhere. Just take a moment, breathe, go sit with yourself, bite your tongue, do whatever you have to do. But there's nothing, you don't have to defend anything. There's nothing to defend.
Yeah, because when the ego drops away, what is left is the perfection of who we are that needs no defending.
Exactly.
So it is a cultivation of a very intimate relationship with the true essence, the soul, the spirit that we are. It's really our authentic self.
Yes.
Is that I am presence that we are cultivating a connection with when we remove that egoic barrier that comes in the guise of all spiritual. Yeah. I'm so grateful for you. Why don't you just share whatever it is on your heart, and then we'll wrap this up. Whatever you would like to leave for whoever's watching this as a nugget of wisdom.
I want to say that no matter who you are, no matter where you're at, you're worth the effort. You're just worth it. Just find a way to give yourself permission to just dive into it. It'll be great in the end. A Course in Miracles is a fantastic, amazing book that has really, they have a lot of great tools in it that has helped me tremendously. Of course, Laina was a huge, great, amazing teacher to go through that process with, but honestly, just truthfully, you're worth the effort, because I know for so long, I didn't feel like I was worth, putting the effort in. But you really are worth putting the effort in. And the thing is nobody else is going to do it for you. So you have to be willing to do it for yourself. Find your drive, whatever it's going to take, just do it, because something great will come from it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. And the last thing that I want to say is, if you're a healer, if you're a spiritual teacher, if you're a spiritual coach, and you go to bed at night scared, if you go to bed at night concerned, if you know that you're judging, if your relationships are not peaceful, if you don't totally, completely trust in your eternalness and accept how magnificent you are, you owe it to yourself. As Ella just said, you're worth it. You owe it to yourself to explore the possibility that there is something within you that will transcend all limitations, all judgments, all hesitations, but you have to be willing to open the door for that deeper connection. Basically, allow God to infill you. Let yourself accept that you were created for love, for joy, for peace consistently. That is the promise, but it is not available to you without your willingness to first admit, yes, I still have fears. And when you are willing to do that, and I know it's very difficult as somebody who is a teacher or a healer or a coach, because we feel like we have failed. We feel like we are frauds. We have to look at all of that. That's the ego keeping us from really being able to reach our fullest potential. Don't let fears, judgments, guilt, shame stop you from becoming totally free. I promise you that is possible. If there's any way that I can assist you, please let me know. But it is my commitment to help anybody who wants to see that and transcend that, to be able to help you with that. It's not easy, but it is absolutely a very simple process with your permission. Mm-hmm. So thank you all for watching this. And if you think that this can help somebody else, please share it. And just remember, we really truly are magnificent. We're here to awaken fully so that we can experience the goodness that this life is designed to give us. Thank you, Ella, so much for being part of this conversation.
This is so great. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.